Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, Brewer fans, welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast with Craig, Vince, and Scott joining you today. How are you doing, fellas?
Hey, Craigers. Hey, Scotty.
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I'm doing fine too. Is Chad on?
I don't think he's going to make it this time. I think he's still forlorn or downtrodden about the end of the Brewer season. He did say, though, that we have a very fitting intro song to our podcast, so there's that.
There is that. Yep.
So this is our last podcast we did, I think, was a preview for the NLDS. Well, unfortunately, the best laid plans didn't work out, as the Brewers did win the opening game with that set at home, but then lost 3 consecutive games. The Atlanta Braves, 1 at Miller Park, and then 2 in Atlanta to have their season eliminated. The Braves went on to then knock off the Dodgers and the NLCS, and unfortunately for Vince and Lena, the Astros in the World Series, and they were the 2021 World Series champions, and they did it without pretty much one of the best players in the game, and Ronald Acuna. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting run by the Braves, and unfortunately, I guess we'll focus on the Brewer podcast, but what I guess I'll just start by saying, obviously there was a major disappointment because as we saw, the Braves made their run all the way to the World Series title. I really felt that this year there was really no real dominant team that I felt that was, locked to win the World Series, and that it was kind of wide open field on both leagues. Obviously the Dodgers and Giants won a lot of games, but I really felt that, there was a chance for a team like the Brewers to make a run all the way, and unfortunately the Braves ended up being that team. So it's highly disappointing. For a great season, the Brewers did win one less than the franchise record for wins in a season. They finished first in the NL Central. Had some great individual seasons by a lot of players, but yeah, definitely disappointing overall. But what were your overall thoughts on the wrap up of the season, guys?
I mean, you hit it on the head, Craig. It was obviously a disappointing way to end what, had been a very, very positive year, especially after the Willie Adames trade in May. I think that there was a good reason for optimism. I obviously in the postseason, it was our offense that really let the team down. I do think that's going to need to be addressed. We obviously had a good enough offense to win as many games as we did during the regular season, but in the postseason, as we saw, we're facing pitching that is of a caliber that's above what you're going to face in the regular season. And you're going to, find guys that are, the best in baseball who are pitching in every single game. So you're going to have to find some hitters that can, really keep up with our pitching staff. I think our pitchers did fine. I don't think that that's why we lost. It was clearly a letdown by the offense, and I think that's why we saw Andy Haynes let go at the end of the year. Even after winning the division.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was particularly surprised about that. If anything, we were probably surprised that he stuck around as long as he did. But, we gave him a good shot, and it was a good run. And I wish him well in the future somewhere or something. But I will say this. In our prediction episode, I made a long, possibly slightly drunken rant about, or I spun a yarn about how I thought that the Braves were going to push the Brewers to the brink. We were going to eke out a win, and that was going to propel us to a World Series win. We were just going to ride that momentum all the way to the World Series and bring it home. It turns out it worked, but it was for the Braves, not for the Brewers. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think everybody talks about like, the last 8 teams that knocked off the Brewers all went on to at least go to the World Series. Great. Awesome. Wonderful.
Yeah.
We're just prepping up everybody else.
Yep.
As you mentioned, the Brewers, for the first time in franchise history, really had, three basically starting performance. If you look at the overall numbers for Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta, three of the probably top 10 Brewer pitching seasons of all time, all in the same season. Josh Hayner had another phenomenal year at the back of the bullpen. In fact, kudos to Josh Hayner. He was just named today, I believe, the reliever of the year, and that's quite awesome that the Brewers have actually had the last four relievers of the years. Devin Williams last year, and then Hayter had won it the previous two seasons. So that's 4 straight years the Brewers have taken home this Trevor Hoffman reliever of the year award, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, Hayter, and nothing against it. The guy's phenomenal during the regular season. But as we saw a couple of years ago in the game that you guys attended, the wild card game against Nationals, where Hayter showed himself to be more than human, and obviously in a really big spot in Game 4 of this NLDS against Freddie Freeman, another left-handed hitter, he lost that battle, and the Brewers end up losing that. If that doesn't happen, the Brewers bring it back to Miller Park. Whole different conversation right now. So it was a pretty huge at bat and a mistake on Hayter's end, obviously, but he did win the.
But Craig, don't you think that that's kind of fluky? We're talking about 2 games overall in the postseason that he's had his rough spots, but I read one stat about Hayter's very dominant 2021 season. I think he had 1 blown save all year. The entire duration of a 162 game campaign. So I really hesitate to judge him based on, what happened against Freddie Freeman, a very good hitter, the reigning National League MVP. It just happened to be, the spotlight was on, everybody was watching, but we're talking about 2 postseason games out of his career. I tend to still have a lot of faith in Josh Hader. I hope he's with us, next season as well, unless we were able to really get a huge return for him. But I do keep coming back to that injury to Devin Williams, a self-inflicted injury that he suffered while the team was in St. Louis in September. And, I wonder how things might have been set up differently a little bit, at least in the bullpen for the Brewers if Devin had been healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess it would have been interesting. Who knows? Maybe if Freeman doesn't hit that homer, maybe if there's a healthy Devin Williams, we could have, a parade going through downtown Milwaukee at 55 miles an hour.
Which I'm sure you would have flown back for, Scott, or driven up.
Yeah, I would have been so angry. I would have been like, what? What just happened? Follow him.
Well,
I don't know what was going on there, but yeah.
Well, I think maybe this time next year the Brewers will have a chance to have that parade in downtown Milwaukee, and not only that, but maybe they're waiting for Scott to be living in Milwaukee again. So by next year, it'll be a much shorter drive for the parade.
Oh yeah,
I actually tried to get
from Grafton.
I tried to get a mortgage today.
How'd that go?
For some reason, they said that they wanted me to be working more. I'm like, all right, try.
They must not know you. Not likely. But yeah, it's a much shorter commute from Grafton or Menominee Falls to Milwaukee. I know you don't like to go to the cities, but that wouldn't be a bad one for you, Scott. I would assume that you would at least get up and head down to that if that were to happen in Milwaukee at some point. But Craig, to your point, this was the most dominant pitching season probably ever for the Brewers, top to bottom. Both the starting rotation and the bullpen were outstanding. You look back to other successful Brewers teams, and you look at 2011 with Greinke and Markham and Giovanni, and that was a pretty good rotation. But I think this rotation is great, and the fortunate thing is that all these guys are still Brewers property for a couple more seasons. To me, this is the best rotation that the team has ever had. I think that it's better than the 82 staff, even with former Cy Young Award winner and Pete Vukovich and a Hall of Famer and Don Sutton. I think that this team top to bottom in the rotation is better because there are so many seasons in Brewers history where a guy like Adrian Hauser or Eric Lauer, who had great seasons, by the way, they would have been your eighth rather than your 4 or your 5 starter, and that's really exciting, and that does bode well for the future. And I know we're still, very fresh off of this loss, and it still hurts. But I do think that there are reasons for optimism going forward, and I think that this rotation is exciting. It's just, can we get a couple more bats that I think that we need to kind of push it over the top.
Well, at this time last year, we were talking on our podcast, probably last November, going into near the hot stove season, so to speak. We were talking about, the Brewers likely would entertain the offers for Josh Hayner in a possible trade, and they didn't end up doing that. And I think that was a smart move in hindsight because of the season that they had. And now I don't think any of us are going to be talking about wanting to trade Josh Hayner. It could still happen. The Brewers have control of him for 2 more years, but he's going to be a little bit expensive in arbitration. But with that being said, I think that the Brewers are no longer looking to trade him, most likely, mostly because of the fact that I think they still have to strike while the iron is hot in this kind of 2-year window coming up, when we still have control of Hayner and Woodruff and Burns and of course Peralta too. Luckily, it's under that cheap contract going forward. So yeah, I think that this is a window of opportunity. And if you look at the rest of the division now, I mean, the Cardinals finished second, and they ended the season by firing their manager, believe it or not. And then you look at the other teams, the Reds are not going to retain a couple of really key players. So I think they're going to cut payroll. So they're going to be declining. Pirates aren't there yet and hardly ever are there. And then if you look at the Cubs, they're definitely in a massive rebuilding. Of course, they could spend a lot in free agency, but their team has been so gutted that it's going to take them a while to be contenders again. It's not going to be a 1 or 2 year flip around, I don't think, for the Cubs. So really, if you look at going into 2022, it's really probably going to be that 2-team race for the NL Central again. And I still believe the Brewers are going to be the best team. I mean, Wainwright and Molina are going pretty much in their last seasons of their career, and the Cardinals this upcoming year. So if we look at beyond even next year, they're going to be losing those two. The Brewers, I think, have a real nice window of opportunity to be playoff contenders both the next 2 years. And I think because of that, you've got to keep Hayner. And not only that, but I think you've got to consider possibly emptying the upper levels of your farm system to acquire a difference-making player. And I'll just throw out the name, like someone like Matt Olson or something, at power hitting first baseman for the A's, who most likely will have a sell-off here coming up too. Could be someone that might be worth acquiring in this window of time where the Brewers can really make a run. But it's obvious the Brewers have to their offense. Well, it's been a problem for the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, Craig, and to your point, we've won that National League Reliever of the Year award for the last 4 or 5 seasons because David Stearns and Matt Arnold value that bullpen so much. I mean, so to me, it would take a lot to pry Josh Hader away from the Brewers. I think that they understand how important that lockdown bullpen is to the success of this team. And yes, our starting pitching is better now than it was 5 years ago, but I still think that given the nature of the game in 2021, when you have those types of starters like we do with Burns and Peralta and Woodruff, and they can hopefully get you through 6, maybe 7 innings, and then you can hand it off to a really solid bullpen. And so I think that that's still a huge part of David Stearns' game plan. So I do think that we're going to hold on to Hayner. And the other factor in that is the Devin Williams factor. And I hate to keep bringing it up because I love Devin, but I guess that the Brewers need to figure out kind of what we have in him. Are we going to stick with him after what happened and down the stretch last year? I just think that was such a gut punch to the team when it occurred. I really think that did have a huge impact. And I don't know what the Brewers' plan is with him. Is he going to come back next year and still be our 8th inning guy? I really don't think that the Brewers are prepared to make him our closer, which is pretty much what would have to happen if we were to trade Hayner, right? I mean, unless we were to sign somebody else. So to me, Boxberger's already a free agent. He was very solid for us as a 7th inning guy. I think that if we're not going to re-sign him, we're still going to have to add to the bullpen, not subtract, by trading Josh Hader.
Well, if you look,
it's definitely going to be interesting, that's for sure. I mean, Devin Williams, I guess, was kind of the GOAT this year, and by GOAT, I mean, see, back when I was a kid, GOAT actually didn't mean greatest of all time. It meant kind of the opposite. So yeah, that definitely happened. I guess the other thing that nobody wants to talk about, but the elephant in the room is probably that we don't even have a collective bargaining agreement for next year. So we don't even know if opening day is going to happen on time. I mean, obviously, I think it will. Worst case scenario, though, I mean, I guess absolute worst case scenario, we don't even have a 2022 season, which I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it's definitely a possibility. And so the other thing, though, is that the more likely thing that'll happen is that we will come to an agreement and the DH will be implemented in the National League as well. I definitely think that's going to happen. And that means that we can have potentially another bat that we're going to have to get in the lineup. So it's compounding our own problem.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Scotty, and Garcia's a free agent. You know, the guy who led the team in home runs for the Brewers this season. I mean, we can't forget that, you know, Christian Yelich is now coming off of two, what I'll just classify as very bad years. And we're losing the guy who had the most home runs in our lineup. So, I mean, the Brewers do have a ton of holes. I still don't know that we found our real answer at first base. I know that fans love both Vogelbach and Tellez, and they're kind of fun, and they have some big moments for sure. I'm not down on either one of those guys, but, you know, one of those guys maybe as a backup off the bench might be a little bit more palatable than being your you know, starting first baseman going into 2022 if there is a season. And Scotty, to your point, what I'm questioning is how the lack of a collective bargaining agreement, which does expire technically on December 2nd of this year, how that's going to impact the Brewers and other teams' offseason preparations. I mean, do we just kind of sit on our hands for the next, you know, few weeks and then see what happens by the second? And then if that's not renewed, which I'm sure it will not be right away, do teams even sign any free agents, or does just all hot stove activity cease until there is some sort of an agreement so that, you know, teams know what they're working with, whether it be with a luxury tax or you know, some of the other proposals out there, a salary cap or even a payroll minimum for teams like Miami and Pittsburgh that never spend any money on players despite receiving revenue sharing. So we really don't know. We don't know if we're going to have a DH. We don't know if we're not. We don't know a lot of things. So I just wonder how teams like the Brewers are going to approach the offseason with all of these question marks and uncertainties going into it.
The Brewers usually have been approaching the offseason by really kind of like laying in the weeds and letting all the chips, the dust settle on the major free agent signing, and then they kind of pick over the leftovers, so to speak, and try to get some bargains. I don't know if that'll really. I don't think that's going to change much. I mean, with Yelich's contract under, you know, on our books basically, and a lot of guys getting arbitration raises coming up, I really feel that the Brewers are not going to go out and make a splashy free agent. Like, people are saying, oh yeah, we might sign Nick Castellanos. I'm sorry, but he's going to cost too much money, and we're just not going to do that. We're most likely going to land more bargain guy, and maybe not the complete dumpster diving bargain bin that I guess Stearns has been operating under the last couple of years, Stearns Arnold. But I think it'll be someone, you know, most likely a power bat. I'm guessing they're going to kind of focus on either an outfield spot to replace Garcia or possibly a first baseman type. But I mean, I really don't think they have as many holes as a typical offseason, to be quite honest. I mean, their entire starting rotation is coming back, and with depth. I mean, they're literally really not. I mean, they've got Hauser and Lauer as our, you know, fourth and fifth. I mean, we have some pretty nice depth, and then you got Ashby possibly, who's probably going to be groomed for rotation spot too. So that's 6 starters deep and really young, nice starters. I mean, to begin with, our bullpen is for the most part coming back outside of possibly like Boxberger. And then if you look at our offense, I mean, obviously first base has been a problem ever since Fielder left, but beyond that, I mean, we are losing Garcia because we didn't offer him a qualifying offer, and he's not coming back most likely. So I think we'll replace him with some type of free agent sign. But other than that, I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of shopping done by the Brewers, really.
One understated need for the Brewers might have this offseason, Craig, as I see it, is the catcher position. I know that Omar's coming back, but Manny Pena is a free agent. I'm wondering if we're going to re-sign him, or you know, he's had a pretty solid run with the Brewers as kind of a off again, on again, starter and backup. But, in the role that he's been solid enough, perhaps to earn a starting opportunity elsewhere. I'm wondering if the Brewers are going to re-sign him, or if it's going to be the Brewers are going to have to go find a backup catcher as well. And that might be a need that, the team prioritizes. I don't necessarily see us, giving that backup catcher position to Luke Maile, who just declared free agency, or some of the other guys. I know we've got some younger catchers in the system too, so perhaps we could, call up somebody like a Mario Feliciano or someone of that nature. But that could be an interesting position to watch for the offseason for Milwaukee as well.
Yeah, and Omar Narvaez had such a great first half, but he really was terrible the entire second half. But I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
No, it's definitely true. He finished with a pretty, a pretty solid line. But yeah, the bulk of that, he did all his heavy lifting before the All-Star break. But I was going to say that when it comes to a backup catcher, especially with the starting rotation that we have, I would definitely prefer us to have a veteran leader like Pena. I just think that if we are going to bring up someone through the system, or bring in a young, unproven guy, I don't want to see that as a backup. Now, we can call somebody up if, let's say, we re-sign Pena and either him or Narvaez happen to get injured. Then I'm totally fine with it. But this rotation is too good. I don't want to mess around.
Yeah, that's a great point, Scott, and in terms of veteran leadership, because primarily what you're looking for out of that position, of course, is a guy who can handle a pitching staff and be a leader, and somebody who knows how to call a good game. I think that the offensive production out of the catcher spot is truly just a bonus, 95% of the time. So as long as they're not hitting 150 or something, I think that it's fine generally if the guy can handle the pitching staff.
Well, even Pena, I mean, I'm pretty sure he hit under 200 last year, but I don't know. He was probably good for, 10 or 12 homers probably. I don't know. It's not in front of me. But
in fact, he had 13
Scott,
home runs.
Have your interns look it up, Scott. That's what they're
which
there
is fifth on the team, 4 more than Christian Yelich. Yeah.
Oof. That's a backup catcher. Oh, well. Well, I mean, the biggest value that he has, aside from, obviously being able to call a great game, play, is his absolute stellar defense. Yeah, I mean, Pena doesn't bring his value with his slightly below the Mendoza line batting average. But he is extremely valuable, I think. So, see how it goes.
Pena last year, just for the record, hit 189. I had to look it up. I hit 189, but 13 home runs, 33 RBIs. So, not a great offensive year. He provided a little bit of pop, but he certainly knows how to call the pitching staff, and he's worked with these guys for a number of years. I mean, that's the other value in a guy like Pena compared to somebody that you just kind of sign as a fresh face off the free agent list. It's, this is a guy that has worked with this entire pitching staff, starting in spring training and going back several seasons now. So I think that's important. Oddly enough, I mean, Pena has been a Brewer since 2016. It's crazy to think it's been that long.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we brought him back, because he is a right-handed hitter and Narvaez is lefty. They kind of seem to make a really nice tandem when healthy. But you never know. I mean, as a backup catcher, that familiarity with the pitching staff to me is kind of like a key over like a slightly better bat as a backup catcher that is not familiar with our young pitchers. So who knows what the Brewers are thinking there, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do bring him. But outside of like Garcia and Pena, really in some bullpen arms, the bulk of our team is really going to be coming back. So that is exciting. If you look at a 95 win, did we win 95 or 96 games? Yeah, that I think 96 games we won. So I mean, we won the division by quite a few games. So I really feel that there's a lot to be optimistic about going in the next season. I mean, we'll talk more on our next podcast about the CBA and all those possible ramifications coming up, and also more looking forward. So we'll kind of finish up the rest of this podcast by looking back, and I even have a rapid 9 coming up. But I did want to mention that also earlier this week, the MLB did list off their finalists for the big end of year awards, and I know that Craig Counsell made the final 3 for NL Manager of the Year, along with the Giants, Gabe Kapler, and the Cardinals, Mike Schlitt. And then over in the NL Cy Young Award, Corbin Burns made the final 3, along with Max Scherzer and Zach Wheeler. Real quick, what were your thoughts on those announcements? Were you surprised by anyone being left off of the top 3 in those? And I guess, what are your thoughts on the chance of either of those two Brewers bringing home the hardware, I guess?
My only surprise on that was Brian Snitker from Atlanta being left off the finalist list for the National League. I mean, I think that, well, obviously they submit these names before the postseason starts, so I guess I kind of get it. But, he had another good season. But, quite frankly, he edged out Counsell a couple years ago, and I think that Counsell clearly deserved the award. So, if Craig can edge him out this year, Craig Counsell is certainly deserving of a Manager of the Year award one of these seasons. I mean, the job that he's done with Milwaukee since he was named manager in 2015 has been remarkable. So I'm hopeful that this is his year. And Corbin Burns, I think, deserves the Cy Young Award. I hope that he gets it and that Milwaukee gets enough national attention and love for him to win the award. But he's certainly deserving whatever happens.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a couple. Well, there are definitely a few pitchers, notably Urias from the Dodgers. He was really good. Actually, Buehler from the Dodgers, half the Dodgers starting rotation, was omitted from the list.
Max Scherzer was great again this year. I mean,
yep, yeah.
He's a finalist.
But you could also, I mean, you could even argue that, like, well, I guess you really can't. But, like, obviously Woodruff and Peralta, I think in past years, I think that they would have potentially been at least in the conversation. But I guess that's not like a huge surprise. But, yeah.
I think they'll both finish in the top 10 of voting. I think all 3 of the Brewers' top 3 will finish in the top 10 of the NL Cy Young voting. That's what I predict, at least. But we'll see. The results are soon. That gets released. I think the Manager of the Year is on next coming Monday, and the Cy Young gets announced next Wednesday. So hopefully Brewer fans are tuning in for that. But yeah, I agree with Vince. I was surprised that the Cardinals manager, who's not even with the team anymore, over the Braves manager. But those votes are in before the start of the postseason, of course. But a little surprising there. And then I was really kind of shocked that Walker Buehler didn't make the top 3. I mean, I get the whole Wheeler thing, even though honestly, if I had votes, Burns would get the number 1 vote for my ballot, and I would actually put Walker Buehler's season second. So I was really shocked he didn't make the final 3, but whatever. It should be interesting to see those results pouring. But Counsell definitely will at least one of these years. It almost seems like hard not to give it to Kapler this year with his team coming out of nowhere and winning 107 games.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
yeah, that's true.
Craig might have to wait one more year, but at least next year, we'll have over 100 wins for him to, hang his hat on, and we'll be on our way to the World Series and whatnot. So,
Craig, I don't think that you could vote for National League Cy Young Award because you put money on one of the candidates. So I think you'd be barred from participating.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm not going to be voting, but
there'd be a conflict of interest. I mean, it would be a clear ethics violation. So I think that you would probably be in. Yeah, you probably can't vote.
I thought they got rid of that. I thought they got rid of the ethics violations in this country. Apparently not.
No, Chad says that they're pretty strict. He told me that.
Damn it.
Okay. All right. So before we get to the Rapid Nine, are there any other thoughts you want to include in or anything in the 2021 Brewers season that unfortunately came to an end, even though we did make the playoffs for the 4th consecutive?
Yeah, Craig, I just wanted to say I think that we got to throw a little kudos to a few guys. I think Colton Wong, he surpassed my expectations of him this season. I mean, I knew that he was the Brewers' big free agent acquisition going into 2021, but seeing him play day in and day out, it reminded me of why I hated him so much when he played for the Cardinals and he played the Brewers. He is everything that you want at the top of the lineup. I thought that he was outstanding. Obviously, our pitchers that we mentioned in the starting rotation, I think from top to bottom in the starting rotation, and our bullpen deserve a lot of kudos. And Willie Adames, it should be pointed out, did win the Brewers team MVP for 2021 as well. Obviously that's a team award, so it's not national recognition or anything, but I still think it worth mentioning just, what a great season that he had. And I don't know what exactly the future holds for Willie, if that was what we're going to see from him going forward or not, but I can tell you this, it was a lot of fun to watch him this season, and it was certainly the addition that the Brewers needed in, late May when we acquired him from Tampa.
Yeah,
our offense was pretty unwatchable at that time. And I guess the only thing I was going to say, not about the Brewers, but maybe technically, I guess the only thing I was thinking is, to me, this is the first year that Gabe Kapler was like a pretty good manager. Like I think that there's a lot of people that thought that in his previous attempts at managing that he fell short in a big way. And so I don't know if any of that is going to carry over to the voters, where they might think this is more of a flash in the pan, whereas Council has kind of proven it year in and year out. So it's possible that Council do it. I wouldn't put money on it, but if he does win it, I think that would be a slight factor.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely, I agree with you, Scott, that Gabe Kapler, I had very low opinion of going into 20 as a manager. I mean, as a former Brewer, yeah, lots of accolades there, but as a manager at the Phillies, definitely not someone that was doing great things. So, all right, well, let's get to the rapid nine, guys. A lot of this is just
Scott. Feel free to take your time on these too. I know Craig's always talking about being rapid, but we want to hear your answers and really get into detail on these.
Yeah.
I'll probably have at least a clever anecdote about each one of my answers. So, if if you're on a nice 3-hour drive straight through Nebraska or something like that, and you want to, keep the podcast rolling, because this one's going to get good. Maybe.
Yep, agreed.
So again, this one, our 9 innings of question here are kind of based off of some Burke Review accolades we give every year. So let's start off with the first inning, and Scott, I guess we'll have you lead off. The Brewers 2021 hitter of the year. Who would you give that to?
I'm going to go with Keston here. No, come on. Don't be like that. That's not – this is a postseason. That's not nice. No, I mean, I believe me. Remember when we had this really long conversation about literally just about every podcast a couple years ago about how Corbin Burns, how he was absolutely struggling. And now look at him. He's probably going to be a Cy Young. I think he's going to be. But, he obviously turned it around. And – boy, I hope that Keston here can do the same thing, because, man, that would go a long way. Having said that,
hey, Scotty, I know this is rapid 9, but just to your point, I was, as you guys know, I was in St. Louis for that Brewers Cardinals series, and Keston was called up as a surprise, if you guys recall that day, and he was put right in the starting lineup, and I know it's one game, obviously it's a very small sample size, but he had a couple of hits, and he hit the ball hard every single at bat. I was actually really impressed with how different he looked, having seen him play earlier in the year. It seemed like his focus was back, and I don't want to make too big of a deal about it. Again, it's just one game, but I do think that the upside on him is still there to a degree, at least. And I think that, he's been such a pure hitter and has been so good and consistent throughout his time in the minor leagues and his first season and a half in Milwaukee. There's always that chance that we could be talking about him as an all-star in a couple of seasons. You never know.
Maybe all he needs is
I sure hope so.
Brand new hitting coach. And then he'll be fixed. Hopefully.
Never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of hitting, this is a perfect segue back to the question you just asked. I think Willie Adames was I think he was a real solid hitter for us this year. I don't think that when that trade was completed, I'm sure there's some brilliant people in the Brewers front office that thought that he could reach his potential this year. But I didn't really think it was a big deal. So shows what I know. Maybe that's why the Brewers didn't hire me. I got the generic letter that said, "Sorry, we won't hire you" or something. But
excellent. Now, real quick, guys, the Webster's Dictionary defines the word rapid as happening in a short time or at a pace. Just in case you were confused on what this is.
Yeah, but Craig, in our pre-production meeting with our anonymous source, Tom Carter, he mentioned just to, take your time, do what you need to do, and make sure that Scott expounds on his answers. That was very important to our anonymous source, Tom Carter.
Tom actually said that he doesn't mind if we use his full name. And so he's like, if you guys want to keep doing the same joke over and over, like, I guess that's okay. But so I think for the sake of the joke, maybe we should just call him Tom C or T Carter. But who knows?
When you say full name, should we go with Thomas Carter or Thomas J. Carter? Is that what you prefer?
Is it possible from multiple jobs or just the one that we like? Is I guess what's his concerns at this point?
Yeah, I don't know at this juncture, but anyways, okay, Scotty, you said Adames. Craig, even though you're not a huge fan of him, I'm going to go with Avi Garcia. I think he's my offensive player of the year for the Brewers. He was consistent. He hit for power. He was a guy that, I felt pretty comfortable with coming up in big situations at the plate, not during the postseason, of course, but that's true of everyone. And so to me, I'm going to go with Avi Garcia.
All right, I'm actually going to go with Luis Urias. I mean, he led the Brewers.
Yeah, good pick.
Good pick. By nearly almost 100. And he was second on the team with 23 home runs. And his versatility, I think, was really what made him the most valuable player on the team. Being able to play third, short, and second. Wong missed some time where he filled in at second. Our third base was always up and down, and he filled in there. And of course, between Arcia and Adames' tenure, he filled in at shortstop too. And whenever there was injuries, Adames was down for a while. He was filling in there. So I mean, a super valuable guy to have on the team. And I think he proved this year the Brewers are going to ultimately end up winning that trade that we did with the Padres. And I guess he'll get my nod of hitter of the year. So, all right, pitcher.
I was going to say up until last year, that was a really one-sided trade up until last year, and now, you might say that's a wash now. You might even say the Brewers are winning that trade now.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, good.
I mean, Eric Lauer is looking pretty damn good, and I mean Zach Davies. I mean, no offense, but he's pretty much toast, and not even on the Padres anymore. And Grisham is whatever. So.
No, good picks, all you guys. And again, for the record, the Milwaukee baseball writers agreed with Scott the Great Man Bartell, and Willie Adames did win the MVP.
Oh. Okay, so just as an example, our first inning there took about 10 minutes, which means if we went at the same pace, that would take about 90 minutes. Again,
yeah, about an hour and a half.
You should be
a bonus question.
Yeah, Nebraska's
a big state.
Pretty long, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that pitchers and catchers don't report for a few more months. I think we're okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, second inning, Vince. You're going to lead off the second inning.
All right.
Brewers pitcher of the year.
Brewers pitcher of the year, Corbin Burns. I mean, you could definitely make a case to give it to Josh Hayner. But I think that the year that Corbin had was so special that you have to give it to him. And honorable mention, when you can talk about honorable mentions with the Brewers pitching staff, that's great. When you can talk about honorable mentions for like four guys, that's even better. So I'll give it to Burns and honorable mentions to Hayner, to Peralta, to Woodruff. Just awesome up and down pitching performances here by the entire Brewers staff. I can't say enough. And even guys that don't get the credit that they probably deserve, guys like Brad Boxberger, guys like Jake Cousins. I mean, we just had so many guys that stepped up, both in the rotation and the bullpen this year. Adrian Hauser, I mean, you could just go top to bottom. So I'd have more of a problem finding guys in this rotation or in this bullpen that were disappointments, quite frankly. So great year for Brewers pitching.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about Hauser and Lauer, that 4 and 5 starter. There's probably 28 teams in the league that would have loved to have those guys as their 4th and 5th starters. So it's pretty phenomenal.
Well, there's a lot of teams that, again, and most Brewer teams in the past, those guys would have been our ace or our number 2 starter. I mean, when you look back at, some of the teams that were playing in Miller Park when we started working there, guys, it was, rotations led by Jamie Wright and Jimmy Haynes. Oh, God.
The entire 90s was pretty terrible also.
Ruben Quevedo. Yeah, that's not even counting the 90s when we were even worse. I mean, many of those seasons. So, when I think about Matt Kinney being our number 2 starter, Rafael Roque getting the opening day nod in '97 or whatever year it was. I am floored by what a great job Matt Arnold and David Stearns have done in acquiring some of these guys and keeping them as Brewers. I mean, the fact that Adrian Hauser and Eric Lauer are our number 4 and 5 starters is incredible to me. And the fact that, and Craig, like you pointed out, that we've got Ashby coming up through the ranks who, had a rough debut, but actually pitched very well outside of that one bad game against the Cubs in his debut. I think that it's even more reason for optimism. And no joking aside, Craig, I actually thought that Brett Anderson pitched great this year for the role that he was in. I mean, he was consistent. He was solid enough. He's not an ace. We all knew that. But, again, for being a serviceable guy that you could throw out there every 5 days or whatever it was, he was dependable enough to win a decent amount of games for Milwaukee. So, kudos
he's a really solid 7th starter. I agree, and a great veteran to have in that.
But you know what? In all seriousness, he stepped up. He is a guy.
He was solid. He did.
He was solid this year, and he even stepped up. I was really impressed. Again, that series in St. Louis, I was really impressed that he pitched on a couple days rest, knowing he wasn't going to make the postseason roster most likely, and he still was happy to do it. He put out statements on social media how honored he was to pitch for the Brewers, and it just kind of struck a chord. I think that it was just, again, if that's your number 6 starter, basically, that's pretty awesome. So overall, just everybody, but Corbin Burns is my first pick.
Well, not only that though, but Anderson had to battle through like 25 injuries, so.
I know. I know.
By the way, you guys do that. You brought up some unbelievable pitchers that were potential aces on the Brewers team, and you want to take a real deep dive and look at who the 5th starters were with some of those teams. Man,
Paul Rigdon, Shane Mann. I mean. It was just like Brian Millette era in Brewers baseball history, the Andrew Lorraine and Alan Lavralts of the world. I mean, we just had so many guys. And then, quote, when we quote unquote turned the corner, even when we finished 500 for the first time in forever in 2005, I think our number 2 starter that year was Victor Santos, and Toma Oka was battling for that spot. I mean, it was just ridiculous. The guys that we threw out there for so many seasons and threw them out there like we could actually compete with these guys. And that just goes to show that how important depth is. And, I think that we're going to need all those guys next year. You see what happens in a 162 game season. That, there's likely to be injuries in your pitching staff. So, the fact that we've got a guy like Ashby ready to step in, or a guy like Lauer ready to step in. And, the only disappointment as a pitcher this year for me was Josh Lindblom, who we had signed to a 3-year deal going into 2020, and we sent him down. We sent him down to the minor leagues where, I think it was May, whereas previous Brewers teams would have let him suffer at the big league level all year long just because we had paid him a little bit of money. And so that's exciting, when we don't have to kind of suffer through that and watch somebody go out there every 5 days knowing he's just going to get killed by, the Pittsburgh Pirates or something.
Yeah. No, you guys make some fair points. In fact, I think I've mentioned this before, but about 20 years ago now, almost like kind of almost when all the 4 of us met back as employees at Miller Park. But I know Ben Sheets was just breaking into the big leagues at the time. And after he really started to solidify himself, I was like, wow, this is awesome to have an ace. And I don't remember, between Higuera in the late 80s and Sheets in the early 2000s, there was about a 15-year period there where the Brewers didn't even have anyone resembling an ace on the team. And
that's right.
It was kind of nice. And so now for the Brewers, and that's why I was kind of banging on, and Sheets, of course, was a first round pick back in the day. And that's why I've been banging on the drum for the Brewers for the last 10 years to draft a pitcher in the first round that could become an ace, and they just haven't done it. But to their credit, to their scouting department, to Matt Arnold, to David Stern's credit now that they have somehow, you know, three homegrown aces this year. Two of them were in Woodruff, I think was drafted in the 9th round. Burns, I think was drafted in the 4th or 5th round. And then you've got Peralta, who came over via a trade. And then the other two also came over via trade too. And that's Hauser from the Astros and the Gomez deal. And then, of course, we've got Lauer coming over in that Grisham deal. So, I mean, to their credit, they somehow pulled this thing off and got an awesome pitching staff, which I think has been sorely needed for a long time for the Brewer franchise. And we finally have that. And now our offense sucks. So, we got to get it all right at once, and hopefully next year's the year. So anyway, all right. I think where are we? We're still in this is like a 30 pitch second inning here. The second, my pitcher of the year is also going to go to Corbin Burns for lots of reasons. I guess I'll pat myself on the back a little bit and said I did predict that Burns would win and also Cy Young and also throw a no-hitter this year. And he almost did both those things. We'll see. So anyway, moving on to the third inning.
Hey, Craig, this is rapid, man. We gotta get this rolling.
We did better on that. That was an 8-minute inning. The first minute was 9 minutes. That was 8, so we're doing pretty good. All right, unsung hero. Scott, start us off. Third inning, unsung hero.
Unsung hero. Well, I just want to say first of all that there are so many people. No, I'm just messing with you. There are actually a lot of people that you could put here. Since I'm leading off, I'm not going to do an honorable mention. I might yell one at the very end of it, but I'm actually going to say Eric Lauer because I think that he really kind of quietly had a very good year, and I wasn't even sure that he was gonna be in the rotation, if I'm being honest. So for him to do what he did, I was really impressed, and I think he's him and Hauser to an extent also were kind of obviously overshadowed by the big three and their unbelievable seasons, but I mean they had great seasons too. So tip of the cap,
especially down the stretch with Lauer. But that I was thinking about Lauer just to be different. I'll say Colton Wong. Again, he just really exceeded my expectations. I was very impressed.
Well, and Lauer pitched a playoff game for us, and he was doing really well. They just may have left him in just a tick too long, I think. But I mean, who would have thought that going into the beginning of the year? So,
Yeah. No, that's right. I'll go with Colton.
And also, by the way, that was a good decision. Council saved Corbin Burns for Game 5. But anyway, all right.
Hey man, it's not why we lost.
He's well rested. Okay, so my unsung hero is going to be people have different nicknames for him, but I call him the Jace machine, and that's Jace Peterson.
Yeah.
I mean, he obviously wasn't really a starter, but he did fill in at many positions and had a quality at bats, which is pretty cool to see. And that when you see players like Keston Hero swinging at every pitch everywhere and missing at every type of pitch
That's not true. Sometimes you watch fastball.
Jace Peterson.
Good pick, Craig. On base Jace had a great season. On base Jace. I love him. He's great.
Yeah. Okay. I call him the Jace machine, but hopefully he comes back, but who knows? All right.
You should make that a t-shirt.
Wait, we all did the unsung hero. Fourth inning, Vince, you can start.
We have a Brew Crew Review store. Do we still have that?
Sure we do.
Oh, I'm sure.
On Jason would be a real nice t-shirt, I think. So
God, don't your interns run that store for us to sell that stuff? I mean,
I think Scott
our interns
not performing.
we don't even have interns anymore. I don't even know what we're doing with them anymore. So they're gonna have to get their bonus credits for the University of Phoenix somewhere else.
All right. Fourth innings, Vince, lead us off. Who was the most surprising player of 2021?
Christian Yelich being so bad surprised me.
Scott?
That's my answer.
Zing. Oh.
That's it. That's my answer.
Scott, you're up next.
Biggest surprise? All right. Well, actually gonna go with I'm gonna go with Urias. I think I was surprised. I did not think that he was gonna be as good offensively. And say what you will. Now, I have come out and said that I was a little alarmed by his amount of errors. People started to throw around the scariest word in baseball, yips. And luckily, I don't think that really happened. But for a guy that played all over the diamond, he actually made some phenomenal defensive plays. So even though he made a lot of errors, I thought he was, pretty average defensively. I think it all evened out. And I think that those errors are going to go down as, next season and beyond. And so his offense obviously was pretty phenomenal. So, yeah, he's my pick.
I'm going to go with Freddie Peralta because, it seems like eons ago, but at this time last year, there was really Freddie Peralta wasn't even a member of our rotation. And I think that was even true, until just before the season started. Until even going in spring training, I don't think he was for sure going to be in the rotation. So now he was in the rotation. We pitched phenomenally, and he was an all-star, and he even pitched a clean 3 strikeout inning in the all-star game. So that was pretty awesome and surprising to me. Oh, Vince.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fifth inning, most disappointing player. Scott, you can start us off.
Now I had Keston here. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun on that one. Just because I had so many, I had high hopes for him. And you know what? Let me spin this into a positive. When we signed Colton Wong, I think a lot of us were like, where's Colton Wong going to play? And, it kind of just worked itself out. And if we hadn't signed Colton Wong, that would have been, tough. Our offense would have been significantly worse. So, with that in mind, yeah. Keston's my pick.
All right, Vince.
All right. I have to, again, I don't mean to keep harping on him, but I have to go with Christian Yelich. I mean, we're talking about a former MVP hitting in the middle of the lineup that was expected to do, great things for this team. And I don't know what's going on with Christian. I think he still has something left, but I really worry because, the Brewers invested a lot of money in this guy. And I think that there's, I don't know if it's, I don't know what the cause is, but to me, he's by far and away the most disappointing guy on this team. Have other teams figured him out? Is that part of it now? Maybe, I don't know. Oh, maybe that's it. I mean, there's been speculation that the ball that he fouled off into his own kneecap that shattered it a few years ago may have been something that messed with his head. I don't know. I have no idea, not being around him every day. I know that we've got our press passes back, but I think that it seems to me that Christian is just completely lost at the plate, and you can't have that from a guy that you're depending on, to be such a primary core part of your team. This isn't a guy, to me. Keston is still, he had a disappointing year, but he's still young. There's still some growing pains. He was dealing with some personal stuff. I tend to think that maybe that was the cause of some things, but with Christian, it's frustrating because nobody knows what the problem is. And that that I think is going to have to be the Brewers' number one priority this offseason, is to address, how to fix Christian Yelich.
So maybe the person who knows the answer to what's wrong with Christian Yelich is going to be our new hitting coach. Let's hope so.
Never know.
And the most alarming thing with Christian is really his all of a sudden his lack of power suddenly really just escaped him. But the rest of across the board, I mean, he still shows batting skills and on-base skills, and I think if his power can come back around and that can get figured out, I really am confident in a bounce back for Yelich. But yes, his season, it can't be argued, was highly disappointing. 9 home runs he finished on the year. It's pretty terrible. 51 RBIs. Yeah, that's just not acceptable. But really disappointing was someone. My pick for most disappointing, it's got to be Jackie Bradley Jr. Just because, believe it or not, Jackie Bradley Jr. only had 12 less at bats than Christian Yelich on the year. If as astounding as that sounds, I mean, he had 408 plate appearances, 387 at bats, and he batted 163 with really not even good on base skills. I mean, really terrible. I mean, and not only that, but we're really stuck with him going into 2022. And I mean, he was really counted on to fill in for when time was being missed by Kane. And like I said, he was needed, and he just was flat out terrible with the bat. So he's my pick.
Yeah.
6th inning.
Between those two guys and Lorenzo Cain, we have a lot of money tied up next year in that outfield, and we're gonna have to see a lot more production, guys.
Well, Kane hit, and to your point, Kane hit 259, or I'm sorry, what was his batting average? 257 last year with a 329 OBP. I mean, that's not good. He had some clutch moments, but 8 home runs, 36 RBIs, and you've invested a lot of money into him. So he provides other things. The intangibles are still there. I think that he's a team leader for sure. I like him a lot. Still provides a good defense, no question about that. But offensively, the Brewers outfield was just woeful last year, with the exception of Garcia, who is a free agent.
I mean, if you guys,
and these guys are getting paid more than just about anybody on the team, and that's the part that's really scary. And I hate to say it, but maybe a bigger market can cover up some of those woes, or slap a Band-Aid on it or whatever, and fix it. But like, when you're a small market, you're stuck, man. Like, we need these guys to step up.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the Brewers' overall numbers individually on the offensive side of the ball, and you look at the entire team up and down the lineup, you're like, how did this team make the playoffs even, let alone win the division? I mean, really, outside of Garcia having a pretty solid year, and Urias pretty solid. I mean, besides those, and Adames, besides those 3 guys, everyone else really kind of had an off year. I guess Colton Wong was okay, but besides that, Narvaez and Wong kind of were what they should be, but everyone else really underachieved. So, I mean, at least to me, that's why I want to look to 2022 with such positive optimism, is because not only do we have a new hitting coach, Christian Yelich is a possibility he could bounce back pretty big time. Christian could bounce back big time. We could acquire someone better than Avi Garcia to fill another hole in our lineup. And we're bringing back our entire cheap pitching staff, cheap, young, and awesome pitching staff, and entire bullpen almost. So, I mean, there's a lot to be optimistic about going. But, yeah, so since we had so many candidates for most disappointing player on a playoff team, like, I'm really optimistic for our window of time in the next couple of years to make more runs, so to speak. But, all right.
Absolutely. Well, and think about this, too. I mean, we ran away with the division in a way that no Milwaukee Brewer team has ever done. I mean, that's exciting.
I don't know how we do it looking at these numbers from our offensive players. But I know that the person that's listening on our podcast on the way through Nebraska here maybe dozing off a little bit. But here we go. 6th inning, best trade acquisition for the Brewers in 2021. Scott.
We're in the 6th inning already? Oh, 7. Wait, 6th inning. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go with Willie Adames again, and just for you, Craig, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. How about that?
That's perfect. Our listeners. Vince.
Yeah, Willie by far, no question about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go Willie too. Obviously, he was just, as Vince pointed out, named our team MVP, so to speak. And he wasn't even on the team until May, right? So, very interesting. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that Orlando Arcia would get a World Series ring, I would have been pretty excited. Unfortunately, it wasn't with the Brewers.
Oh, you know what? As long as you brought up the World Series, let me just take a quick detour.
7th inning.
One of my friends is a Braves fan, Craig, and he said that he couldn't be happier that Freddie Freeman caught the last out of the World Series to face of the franchise, and that's something that that play is going to be ingrained in his mind and in his heart for the rest of his life. And I mean, the closest that the Brewers probably have to that is like Cecil Cooper jumping off first base after the last out, but like it's just. I kind of was picturing this, and I'm like, what if the Brewers wound up beating the Braves and wound up winning the World Series, and what if the last out went to first base, and Rowdy Tellez is like the guy celebrating, like the photo of like Rowdy Tellez, just like, I don't know, going like getting really excited and getting pumped up about winning a World Series. Like that would be something that would be like a framed photo in like every Brewer fan's room, every sports bar for the next 50 years. It'd be incredible. And so now all we can do is dream, but I just think that'd be funny.
Yeah, it would have been funny, and that's probably the reason why we didn't make it there. But anyway, 7th, we all picked Willie, who was a trade.
At least Rowdy had a good postseason.
Yeah, he did. Number 7, Vince, you can start us off. What was the best July trade deadline acquisition for the Brewers in 2021, in your opinion?
Well, we didn't make a ton of moves. I guess that we'll have to go with Escobar. I mean, I think that he was solid enough, down the stretch. He was certainly serviceable and provided, a bat that, was I guess kind of what we needed. I wish that we would have maybe done a little bit more looking back at it, but I don't think it's going to be John Curtis or Daniel Norris.
No, definitely not be. Scott? No, Scott was going to pick one. Sorry, Scott. You can still pick those.
I think this is a pretty deep pull, but didn't we trade for Hunter Strickland?
We picked him up off. I thought we picked him up off of waivers, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I thought we traded him for cash or something stupid. I gotta look it up now. Hang on, I want to see if he counts. Just skip me. Just come back.
Okay, I'll go first then. I'm gonna go with Rowdy Tellez, who we just talked about, would have been on our iconic shot at first base for some reason, winning the World Series. Unfortunately, he didn't do that. But like Vince pointed out, he did actually have a nice postseason, and even before that, for regular season, he hit 7 bombs, hit 272 with 333 on base percentage, with 28 RBIs, and basically, if you would have, he had a better season than Vogelback, and I don't know, I just really think that he was a nice acquisition. Escobar,
Hunter's, yeah, that's a good pick, Craig. I like Tellez.
Well, guys, guess what? I have a shocking surprise for you. My interns looked it up. The interns that we don't have. Hunter Strickland, the Brewers acquired him from the Angels for cash in June.
There you go. Got it.
It was a month early. You said July, right?
Good work.
So I'm just wondering, on the Angels podcast, similar to ours, if they're doing the same Rapid 9, and they said their favorite acquisition in July was cash. That'd be pretty
$200 from $200 from Mark Atanasio.
That was our best.
Thanks, Mark.
Trade deadline acquisition, but that was now we're on to the 8th inning here, and we're halfway through Nebraska almost, I believe, at this point.
I'm actually going to listen to this on an overseas flight next week, and I'm pretty excited. It's going to be great. It's going to last like the duration of the flight. It'll be awesome.
This actually is looking back.
There's no rule. There's no rule that you only have to listen to the podcast once. I mean, if you guys
true. I'll just keep
up our numbers, help us duke the stats.
That's true. I'll just keep it on repeat. Yeah, that sounds good. Actually, they'll take up.
Listen to those older episodes. You can hear us talking about how we'll make some bold predictions that don't come true. It's awesome.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll do.
You only have to go back one episode for that for me. So
that's true. I can't wait.
Okay, so for the 8th inning question, which will be, I think it's it's Vince's turn, I think, for just lead off. 8th inning. Now this is best free agent acquisition that you can either go last off season or during the season. Apparently, unrestricted is not an option because we traded them for cash. But besides that, free agent signing from 2021 season or last.
Colton Wong. I mean, I think that when you look back, the Brewers made 2 free agent acquisitions that would be considered quote big. One was Wong and one was Bradley, right? So it's got to be Wong.
Scott.
If we're talking with our hearts, I think the answer is John Axford. He had a phenomenal run with the Brewers years ago, and he had a slightly less phenomenal run this year with us. And I do say that in jest. John Axford is one of my personal favorites. If you have amazing facial hair and you're on the Brewers, you're a winner in my book no matter what. I don't care what the score says.
Just like Joey Meyer.
In my book, we're going to be winners.
Like Joey Meyer.
All right, well, that's a good answer, Scott.
I'm still going to say Wong, and I think mostly because of Hira unfortunately having a slightly down year, like I've already harped on. And not only that, but like the best part is that the Cardinals wouldn't pay him, and we did, and it's just great.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with Brad Boxberger. I mean,
that's a good pick.
You're toward the back of the bullpen, and if you really think about it, we were really assuming that Devin Williams as Airbender were going to be awesome throughout the whole year, but to be quite honest, he was not that good the first 2 months of the season, and or in the postseason, I should add, or even in the celebration or in the locker rooms, he wasn't good either. But Brad Boxberger was pretty throughout. So yeah, I'm gonna go with him, and I don't know. Hopefully, he can be brought back, but maybe not. So, all right, here we go. Finally, the 9th inning. We're almost. I don't know which direction these people, our podcast listeners, are heading in Nebraska, but probably.
They've already turned it off. It's fine.
Next state.
No, come on, you guys are.
All right, I think Scott, do you lead this one off? Your favorite game or moment of 2021?
Well, I just made fun of the Cardinals, so I don't want to do it again right away. But the Vogelbach walk-off grand slam is probably the best and most obvious answer. That was pretty awesome. And the fact that it happened at home against the Cardinals is like just the icing on the cake. So.
All right, that's a great pick. Vince?
That was a great game. I'm going to go, though, with the game that the Brewers were down 7-0 against the Cubs. I believe it was Ashby's Major League debut. 7-0 in the first inning, Chicago, and the Brewers answered back with 7 and then another 7 and ended up winning the game with 7 runs and scored 14 or more runs that game. I forget exactly how many we ended up with, but just to pile on. And one of my favorite parts was not only getting the win itself and doing it at Wrigley Field and in Chicago with all those idiot Cubs fans, but it really is part of the series that led the Cubs to completely fold and sell off half their team at the trade deadline a couple of weeks after that. I remember I was we were in Washington for something, and the Cubs happened to be in DC playing the Nationals the day of the trade deadline, and both teams like completely traded their entire rosters that day, and all these idiot Cubs fans showed up in like Baez jerseys and Bryant jerseys and just a bunch of morons. It was awesome just to see them all like crying after their team had traded everybody that day. It was great.
And I guess I should say that, like, it's not that we hate the Cardinals and the Cubs. It's just that we like every other MLB team more than them.
I really do hate the Cubs a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to be nice.
However, it does seem to me, Vince, and you would probably know this more than that, but did you attend more Cardinals games or Brewer games in 2021?
Brewer games. I saw 3 Cardinals games, 1 in Milwaukee and 2 in St. Louis.
Oh, okay. Just messing with you, but no, that's a great pick. That was actually going to be my pick because I thought you were going to pick a different one, but no, I remember Ashby getting lit up in that, and I love Ashby, so I was like, oh boy, this sucks. And the Cubs had just, I think, a few days prior thrown a combined no-hitter themselves against the Dodgers, I believe, and we're in first place going into that series against us, I believe. And then we just basically not only took them out of first place, but basically put them on a downward spiral and a huge losing streak. I think that made them into, like I said, they traded off their entire team and went into massive rebuilding mode by the end of July. So pretty phenomenal game. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
They went in a downward spiral, and that team was just broken. And
it was awesome.
What do you do?
Yep. But my pick is going to be, well, I don't know if you guys, I imagine Vince might not remember too much because I'm assuming you might not have been in Little League even yet, but back in 1987 when the Brewers last threw a no-hitter, it was quite a while ago, in fact, 34 years ago. So the fact that the Brewers were able to throw their second franchise no-hitter this year, I guess, has to be my pick for game of the year.
That's a good pick.
Even though it was a little bit disappointing that, Burns didn't get to finish it out, and there was some, the traditionalists, like I guess myself, didn't like that. But the fact that, Hayner was able to actually complete the deal and the no-hitter was finalized in Cleveland on September 11th, 2021, that in spite of the inappropriate jokes Scott has been telling that day, that really was a great moment, I think, in the 2021 season, and it really in franchise Brewer history, really. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Burns over the edge for that Cy Young award, because as like Vince pointed out, I've got some financial investments in it, and so has Scott. So
yeah.
Let's hope
not too shabby.
Next podcast, even though I won't be holding my breath with the LA bias and whatnot. So,
Craig, now you can take those earnings and buy a plane ticket to come down to Texas for a series next spring. I think that I even researched some dates that you and Scotty can drive down from Vegas, no problem at all. I mean, we can use his car, but we can definitely go to both Arlington for a Rangers game and to Houston, and it'd be a great couple days. So that's what we can put the earnings towards.
Absolutely.
My car has a dent in it from where I guess like really fast storms out here, they just call them microbursts, and a shopping cart hit my car at like 50 miles an hour.
Nice.
That's okay. One time Craig backed into a pole in Mexico and put a hole into his bumper. It was unbelievable.
That was intentional. That was to
happened.
collect rainwater. He was being an environmentalist because it opened up that bumper.
Rainbow Bright wanted to go do yoga on the beach after that, but yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Luckily, the locals there weren't familiar with most of the English swear words that were being.
Or insurance.
True. No, Scotty, I'm excited for you to get down here. I've been looking up. We got a boot store that you can go to get some cowboy boots and a hat. You're gonna be all dudded up. It's gonna be great.
Awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to work on my y'alls, and I'll have to get rid of my no's. But yeah,
that's true. No more you guys. It's y'all.
yeah.
Yep.
Right,
well, it was a disappointing
honorable...
end to a great season, and but the Brewers did make the playoffs for the 4th consecutive time, and I'm uber confident as long as there is a season next year, and I'm kind of confident there will be, that the Brewers will be making the playoffs once again. So hopefully we're back having our World Series wrap-up podcast at this time next year, because that would be phenomenal.
Well, that's right. And the four playoff appearances in a row for Milwaukee is now fully 50% of the franchise's all-time playoff appearances in the 52 years of Brewers history.
Blows the mind.
So when we make the playoffs next year, they'll probably add another wild card permanently, so it'll be even easier. And then, then that'll be 5 in a row, and that'll be then more than half of our playoff appearances will be in the last 5 years. But I was going to say honorable mention for best games of the year. Remember that one playoff game we won? That was awesome.
Thank you, Scott.
I did attend that game for $7, I think it was. So thank you for whoever
not bad
to me on StubHub. I appreciate that.
Not bad, Craig. Good job.
Yeah, it was. It was a disappointing end of the season, but the one thing that I guess, just to wrap up the podcast finally, is that I think the Brewers need to strike while the iron is hot. And like I said, the division is there for the tanking again next year. And not only that, but we did not lose David Stearns to the Mets, and we did not lose Matt Arnold to the Mets, or any other team for that matter, this offseason. So I think that while those guys are in place and calling the shots of this team, because with success, those guys that eventually at some point are probably going to move on to markets are going to pay them more and whatever. But I think that they want to see, the challenge through of getting this team to the World Series. And I really hope that happens here and either next year or the year after that. I really think the Brewers have this window of opportunity that they've really got to hammer home. And that's why I think, we'll talk about this on the next podcast, but I think the Brewers really have to kind of try to go for it this next year or two. I think it's really important. And I think the Brewers are that close to getting to the World Series.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because, this is a sentence that I've really, other than the last few years, I've never been able to utter in my life, but it was that this Brewer front office is like ahead of the curve. Like, they are trendsetters in analytics right now. Like, they are ahead of the game. That's incredible, because I don't think that was always the case. I obviously don't know, but I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm willing to stick my neck out there and say that hasn't always been true. The only
you mean
problem
that Dean Taylor and Sal Bando were not doing those things?
I'm sure that they were in their own interesting, unique way, but they did not. Unfortunately, it did not yield the result. But I was going to say the big thing about this is, first of all, that never happened. Second of all, that the Brewers are ahead of the game in analytics. Second of all the other teams are going to catch up and make adjustments very, very quickly. Their teams, even the Dodgers, they're like picking up our cast off, like, because they know that we're onto something, and these other teams are going to catch up. And that's more than enough reason to strike while the iron's hot, because right now we've got the core, like, we've got some amazing players on this team, and we have some players that aren't great. And I realize that not everybody's going to be an all-star, but this team, you just fill a couple holes and this team is stacked. We're ready.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I thought we were ready here. And not only that, but like the thing going in the playoffs is we were actually healthy outside of obviously Devin Williams. We were pretty much healthy in all the real key spots. And I think that's pretty huge. As even the team like the Braves and of course the Astros who made the World Series, they had some really key injuries going into the playoffs that really could have cost them and ended up not. I mean, McCullers was down, and of course they lost Morton in the first game of the World Series, and so the Brewers were really, healthy, and that's why I think it was kind of really an opportunity lost. But let's hope for the best of health all of next season, going into the next playoffs or whatever. And like I said, the Brewers have to be, I think, a little bit more aggressive in trading from their farm, and also from possibly trading for a little bit more of a difference maker at the trade deadline as well. I mean, no offense to Escobar or Tellez or whatever, but I mean, if you look at even the guys the Braves were able to bring in, really help put them over the edge. I think they acquired like 4 outfielders after Acuna went down. So
yeah, all those guys, Soler and Anderson, all those guys were deadline acquisitions. And I know we're trying to wrap this up, and we've got our interns here.
We are.
But, well, I just wanted to say I one point that you made before, Craig, is that you didn't think that the Brewers may spend a ton of money on a bat this offseason. I may disagree. And I think that 90% of off seasons, you're right. But I think that if it's ever going to happen, this is the off season to do it. I'm not saying it's going to be, Castellanos or something, but I do think that given where we're at, that Atanasio may be willing to spend a little bit more money, going into 2022 than he was going into 2018, for instance. I think that the pitching staff is still reasonable and affordable enough that, we can afford to do that. And we are going to take Garcia's money off the book. So there is a little bit, I think, that we could play with. So I wouldn't be completely shocked if we did go out and get a bigger name to plug into that lineup.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, it should be exciting offseason on multiple levels. I mean, and we'll talk about this in the next podcast. Obviously, the CBA is going to throw some type of wrench in there in some fashion, and it'll make for a definitely interesting, but possibly, hopefully not taxing and stressful off season of uncertainty. But it's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
Sounds good, guys. Well, I'm counting down the days until opening day at this point. I'm already excited.
Absolutely. All right. Well, stay classy, St. Louis and West Dallas.
Wait, are we supposed to tell people, where to find us or something, or Twitter?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
how to donate
to us
on Patreon.
Donate
to
the most
us on
important
Patreon.
part. Well, we don't have that. We don't. I mean,
if you're telling our listeners where to
money,
if you're telling listeners where to find us, where they've already found us, I kind of.
Well, send us your questions via email to Scott. He is monitoring our emails all the time. We will get to your questions next episode. I know that we didn't really have time here tonight, but Brew Crew Review Podcast with an S at gmail.com is our email address. Otherwise, Brew Crew Review 1 on Twitter. We try to. I know Scott's very busy posting things and making sure our social media stays active constantly on there.
Well, and not only that, but guys, this podcast is at this point, it's like 90 minutes or something like that. We're getting there. And I mean, there's at least 15 solid minutes of content here. And so I think that almost kind of warrants a 5-star review. We could really use them. So I greatly appreciate it if you guys can do that. And, if you could listen to this podcast and all of our past ones 5 or 6 times, just leave it on. It's fine. You don't even have to listen. Just leave it on. Play.
And I think this podcast. I think you're right about the total running time of this podcast. May be a new podcast record for us. It's not as long as Brooker movie, but it's still. I think it might be a new record. I'm not sure, Scott. Can you have your interns check on that for next time?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Maybe get some interns. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We'll be coming back at you, listeners.
That's been a good episode, and appreciate all the insight. Appreciate you, Chad, and Tom Carter, and Vikram, and everybody who's helped here with the show. Scotty's interns, everybody. Thank you.
If you'd like a credit at DeVry University, feel free to apply. Just I don't know, send us something on Twitter or whatever it is. At Brew Crew Review 1, right? I think that's what it is.
Yes, that's it.
Awesome.
All right, stay classy,
all right, guys.
Listeners, and go Brewers.
Stay classy, guys. Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.